Everybody is a creative director now. Everybody has a mood board. Everybody has a brand coming soon. Everybody owns a film camera, drinks coffee in a dark cafe, and posts blurry pictures with a mysterious caption underneath them. Everybody knows who Raph Simmons is. Everybody knows Margiela. Everybody knows that one picture of Kanye in an airport. Everybody wants the chrome heart jewelries, the Bottega bag, the oversized denim, the little distressed t-shirt, and the weird headphones hanging out of the pocket. Somehow, even though everybody's trying to look different, everybody is beginning to look exactly the same, right? And the internet gave an entire generation access to references that used to be super difficult to find. Runway arcade archives, old magazines, Japanese street style books, underground music scenes, and rare clothing are now sitting on the same phone that you can order DoorDash with. That access should have been created the most original generation in history, but instead it's created the creative director uniform, and even I might fall into this myself, right? Because a lot of people do not actually want to make something, they want to look like the type of person who makes something. They do not want the boring nights, the failed samples, the posts that get 12 likes, the money trapped in inventory, or the months when nobody cares about the brand or the business, right? They want the coffee shop, they want the mood board, and they want the clothes, they want the title in their Instagram bio. They want the identity before they have even done the work, right? This is most of you guys, right? Okay, you want to look the part, but don't really want to do the part. And maybe it's not completely fake. Maybe just like the person that you want to become is now becoming is how becoming that person begins, right? So today I want to talk about why everybody is a creative director now, how social media turned taste into performance, why fashion has become one of the easiest identities to purchase, and why buying the uniform can either be the beginning of your transformation or the thing that prevents it entirely. Yeah, you've seen the same uniform before. A faded crop t-shirt that looks like it survived a house fire, jeans wide enough to cover the entire shoe, Margiela Gats, chunky loafers, or some designer sneaker that looks better after it has been destroyed, chrome hearts jewelry, a Bottega bag, wired headphones, a little digital camera that intentionally takes worse pictures than the phone already in your hand, maybe a cigarette, even though half of the people holding one don't even look like they enjoy smoking. Then you place the person inside a coffee shop, record them through a dirty window, lower the saturation, add film grain, and put an unreleased song underneath it. Boom. You are now a creative director. I'm joking, but I'm also not. Again, I fall into them categories, right? None of these pieces are bad, and I actually use and or like most of them, right? Problem is not the clothing, right? But the interesting part is what the clothing communicates. Uniform tells people, I know something that you don't. I understand references, and that I have taste. Not a normal consumer, and that I'm also a participant of culture. That message is more valuable than the material of the clothes itself. A plain faded shirt is still a plain faded shirt, but when the right person wears it, photographs it correctly, and connects to the right references, it stops being fabric and it becomes evidence of taste. And taste has become its own form of status. There was a time when luxury was extremely obvious. The logo needed to be large enough for everybody across the room to understand how much money you spent. Gucci belts, monogram bags, giant designer names across the chest. That point was recognition, right? Everyone wanted to be known like, hey, look what I got on. This was like the 2017 era. But the new version of luxury often pretends not to care about recognition. The logos have become smaller, the items look a lot older, the t-shirts look damaged, the shoes look more and more basic, and the person who wear it acts like explaining the piece would ruin the entire point of it, right? It does still have status, but the simple status is for people who want to believe they are above status. Instead of saying I have money, the outfit says I have information. And in fashion, information can be more exclusive than anyone can recognize a Louis Vuitton monogram, but recognizing a rare Raf collection, an old Helmut Lang piece, or a specific Margiela reference tells other fashion people that you belong inside of the conversation. The creative director uniform is not only about looking good, it's a membership card. Social media changed the purpose of personal style. Before every outfit could become content, you could get dressed, leave the house, and allow the moment to disappear. Now every outfit has the possibility of becoming permanent. You do not only ask, do I like this? You ask, how will this look in a picture? You ask, what will song will go underneath this? You ask, does this fit the rest of my page? You ask, what will people assume about me when they see it? That means you no longer are simply dressing for yourself, you're directing a character. Your bedroom becomes a set, typically the gas station becomes a location, your coffee becomes a prop, the airport becomes a runway, your friends become models, your normal life becomes raw material for a campaign about the person that you want everyone to believe that you are. That is why so many people online appear to live inside perfectly constructed universes. The person you see on Instagram might look like they spend every day studying magazines, walking through galleries, and designing collections. In reality, they might have spent 40 minutes moving the same chair next to a window because that light looked better there. But that does not make the image meaningless, okay? Fashion has always involved construction. Runway shows construct fantasies, magazines construct personalities, campaigns take an ordinary product and place it inside a world that makes it feel important, right? The difference is that now regular people use those same techniques themselves. We have all become our own hands. We select the images, we write the captions, we decide which moments fit the story and which moments should never be seen. The title creative director became popular because it perfectly describes the fantasy of controlling perception. You do not need to sew. You do not need to illustrate. You do not even need to know how the product is manufactured. You only need to point out references and say, make it feel like this. And I understand why that is attractive, right? Technical skills are slow, taste feels immediate. Learning garment construction can take you years, and building a profitable company can even take longer. But making a mood board takes an afternoon, and the finished board makes the idea feel real before the reality has had the opportunity to test it. The mood board provides the emotional reward of creation without the risk of actually creating. That is where the fantasy becomes dangerous. Pinterest might be one of the most influential fashion institutions of this generation, and not because it creates trends, but because it removes their original context and organizes them into aesthetics. A runway image that once belonged to a specific collection, designer, political moment, or subculture gets separated from its history and placed beside 50 other images that share the same color palette. Raf Simons becomes sad boy aesthetic, Margiela becomes deconstructed fashion, old punk imagery becomes grunge inspiration, Japanese street photography becomes archive core. The reference stops being an idea and becomes a texture. And once those cultures become textures, it becomes extremely easy to copy. This is why 10 brands can release what feels like the same collection without technically copying one another. They pulled from the same archive pages, they save the same editorials, they use the same typefaces, they distress the same oversized blank, they photographed it in the same parking garage. Every individual decision feels tasteful, but when those decisions are combined, the results feel strangely empty. It looks like fashion, it sounds like fashion, it has all the correct references, but it does not tell us anything about the person who made it. Real taste is not demonstrated by how many references you can. It is demonstrated by what you do with them. Two designs can study the same Raf Simons collection and leave with two completely different lessons. One might focus on the silhouettes, another might focus on youth alienation. Somebody else might study how music created a community around the clothing. Copying the service gives you an aesthetic, understanding the reason gives you a philosophy. And a philosophy is what allows a brand to survive after the aesthetic becomes oversaturated. There was a period when it felt like everyone wanted to become a rapper. Now everybody wants to start a clothing brand, and honestly, the dream is very similar. You get creative control, build an audience around your personality, create something people can attach their own identity. You can make money without waiting for a traditional company to choose you, and if everything works, your taste becomes culturally important. The clothing brand is the new mixtape. It is one of the most accessible ways to announce, I have a vision and I think other people should live inside of it. That accessibility is beautiful. It is also why the internet is filled with brands that disappear after 2 drops. Starting is easier than continuing. I can tell you that as a fact, right? A person can choose a name, generate a logo, create 3 mockups, and call themselves a founder before they have sold a single product. The title arrives immediately, and the responsibility arrives later. The internet usually shows the glamorous section, design, the shoot, the models, the launch party, and the sales screen. It does not show that the sample arrives with the wrong measurements. It is not showing paying for inventory and watching it sit in a room. It does not show coordinating with your partner when both of you guys are tired. It does not show editing content after working a long shift. It does not show launching something you believe in and realizing the internet does not automatically care. That is the difference between wearing the founder costume and building a company. The costume is purchased once. The company has to be chosen again every day. And I'm not saying any of this from the outside. I'm building a clothing brand right now called Club Utopia. Club Utopia started with the idea that everybody is chasing a place in their mind where life finally feels the way it's supposed to feel. For one person, that place might be money. For another person, it's love. It might be New York, an airport, a new apartment, a creative career, or simply having enough freedom to wake up and control your own day. You tune those emotions into locations like Desire Drive, Paranoia Park, Euphoria Heights, Limerence Lane, and Champagne Coast. But building that world has forced me to understand the difference between looking like a creative director and actually directing something. It is easy to post the mood board, but it's harder to make every design, shoot, caption, and product feel like it belongs in the same universe. It's easy to call yourself a founder, but it is harder to continue building when the post flops, inventory does not sell immediately, or real life gives you 1,000 reasons to stop. That process, the good part and the ugly part, is what we were documenting on Club Utopia Instagram. So if you do want to watch us build that world in real time, follow at clubutopia.us on Instagram. Don't follow because I'm pretending we have everything figured out. Follow because we are showing what it looks like while we figure it out. Okay, this is just me building in real time, and if you guys are building a brand, we can build it along together. That brings us back to the real question: is performing an identity always fake, or is performance sometimes the first stage of becoming? It is easy to make fun of people trying too hard. It is easy to look at somebody wearing the entire creative director uniform and decide that they are pretending. But every identity begins as an experiment. Before you become confident, you imitate confidence. Before you understand your personal style, you copy people whose style you admire. Before you develop your own design language, you study the designers who made you want to create. Before a brand becomes a world, it is usually a messy collection of references, ideas, and borrowed confidence. There's nothing wrong with beginning through imitation, though. The problem begins when imitation becomes the final destination, and at some point you have to just close Pinterest, guys. I know, crazy to say, right? At some point you have to stop announcing what you're about to create. At some point the mood board has to become a sample. The sample has to become a product. The product has to face the public, and the public has to be allowed to reject it. That last part matters. The fantasy version of you cannot fail because the fantasy never has to produce anything. The real version of you will make bad work. The real version will misunderstand ideas. The real version will waste money, choose the wrong image, release the wrong product, and occasionally create something that nobody responds to. But only the real version can improve. The person who appears perfectly tasteful online might remain trapped inside a presentation forever. The person willing to make something imperfect has the possibility of developing an actual voice. Right? Yes, just like the person that you want to become, go to places that make you feel inspired, buy that magazine, study that collection, make that mood board, put designer in your bio if the commitment helps you take yourself seriously, but eventually the title has to become a responsibility. If you call yourself a designer, design. If you call yourself a creative director, direct something. If you call yourself a founder, build even when the launch is no longer exciting. The uniform should remind you to work. It should never become a substitute for the work. The reason the creative director identity can be purchased is because the best fashion companies understand that clothing is rarely only about clothing. Home Hearts does not simply sell silver jewelry and leather, it sells an entry into a rebellious version of luxury, expensive enough for celebrities, but rough enough to feel like it rejects the traditional fashion establishment. And Fonts Richesse the premise does not simply sell distressed shirts, it sells the fantasy of being a damaged, cultured outsider with enough money to avoid explaining yourself. Gallery Department does not simply sell paint-covered clothing, it sells the appearance of a artist's life in the studio, the work, the mess, and the cultural credibility. Supreme, at its strongest point, did not merely sell the box logos, it sold proximity to downtown New York, skateboarding, music, and a community that existed before the customer arrived. The product gives the customer a shortcut into their story. That does not mean that the emotions are fake, though. If somebody puts on a piece of clothing and feels more confident, more understood, or more willing to enter the world they want, the feeling is real even if it began through marketing. Fashion becomes manipulative when the brand convinces the customer that purchasing is the same thing as becoming. Buying the jacket can make you feel like an artist, but it cannot make the art for you. Buying the archive piece can demonstrate that you have knowledge, but it cannot give you an original point of view. Buying the founder uniform can make you look prepared, but it cannot keep the business alive. Clothing can open the door emotionally, but you still have to walk through the door. And anybody building a brand, this is the real opportunity. Not only ask yourself what your graphic your customer wants, ask who your customer is trying to become. What are they escaping? What do they want other people to recognize in them? What life does the product allow them to rehearse? Then you want to create a world that supports that transformation without lying about what the product can do. Strongest brands do not invent an insecurity and sell the cure. Recognize the desire that already exists and give people a symbol for it. There is one uncomfortable truth underneath this entire conversation, though. Having good taste is not the same thing as being creative, okay? Taste means you can recognize what works. Creativity means you are willing to make decisions before you know whether they work. Taste is safe because it judges finished objects. Creation is dangerous because it exposes your unfinished mind. That is why some people with incredible taste never produce anything memorable. They understand quality so well that they become terrified of making something below their own standard. They would rather create perfect references than reveal an imperfect original idea. But every designer you admire had to cross that gap. They had to make something that did not already possess cultural proof. They had to look at their influences, misunderstand some of them, combine them with their own life, and risk produce something embarrassing. That's where originality actually comes from, not from having no influences. That's impossible in this day and age, but originality comes from passing those influences through a life that nobody else has lived. Your hometown, your family, your failures, your relationships, your job, your ambitions, places you are trying to reach, and the places you are desperate to leave. Those are references too. And they are more difficult to copy because they actually belong to you. Maybe the next important fashion image does not need to come from the archive. Maybe it comes from the gas station you stop at after a 12-hour shift. Maybe it comes from the apartment where you and your friends are trying to build something with limited money. Maybe it comes from the airport because leaving has become the symbol of every future that you're chasing. The creative director uniform cannot tell the internet that you understand somebody else's world. It can tell you that the internet that you understand somebody else's world, but your real life is what gives you the material to create your own. Everybody is a creative director now because everybody is directing how they want the world to perceive. The outfit is the wardrobe, the bedroom is a set, the Instagram page is the campaign, the person you post online is a character based on the person that you become. Maybe that is fake. Maybe identity has always worked this way. Maybe we see a future version of ourselves before we know how to reach them. We borrow their clothes, study their habits, enter their environments, practice their confidence, perform the identity until parts of the performance become real. But there has to be a moment when the costume comes off and the work remains. There has to be a moment when you stop buying symbols of creativity and create something. There has to be a moment whenever you stop collecting worlds and begin building your own. Because Margiela cannot make you a designer, Chrome Hearts cannot make you interesting, film camera cannot give you a point of view, and creative director in your bio cannot direct your life for you. Those might introduce you to a person that you want to become, but eventually you have to actually become a person. Now, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to your boy Hakilefleur. You know me. I'm going to keep breaking down the psychology behind fashion, luxury, and the identities that we purchase. And if you want to see me attempt to turn these ideas into a real clothing brand, talk about them, follow Club Utopia on Instagram at club.utopia.us. We are building our world in public. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.